And good morning, everybody. Welcome, Hot Takes, Goodman and Renck. Yesterday, a very good day for the Americans and the Canadians at the Olympics. Brock Nelson, a couple of goals, one of the prettiest goals I have ever seen from him with the team dudes, like tic-tac-toe, bang. One of those goals was for Brock Nelson, and then Nathan McKinnon scores a goal. You have Cale Makar dishing out an assist, and clearly Devon Toews sucks. He wasn't even on the scoreboard.
Yeah, that when you look at what Canada did, Eric, and they had a goal that included Makar to Crosby to McDavid to McKinnon for the score. If you're the other teams looking at it, you got to be like, okay, we're good. We're playing for the We're playing for the silver, boys.
Yeah, that's one hell of a power play, don't you think? Hall of Famer to Hall of Famer to Hall of Famer to Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I was like, I saw that, and I watched it live, but then when you see it in the box score, you're like, okay, yeah, this is silly.
Well done, boys, on both sides. North America crushed it. Canada and the United States. In the meantime, I want to tell you about Sasquatch and Wildcard Casinos in Blackhawk. They always have great promotions. Here is the latest, and it's coming up soon. They're going to be giving away a pair of snowmobiles or nearly $18,000 in cash the weekend of February 20th. So, yeah, that's coming up soon. It's your choice on what you want. Earn daily entries with every locked-up jackpot or by redeeming points on your player's card. You can also earn a chance to win during their daily cash drawings every 45 minutes between 10 a.m. and midnight. Sasquatch Wildcard Casinos, loose slots, great promotions, great food, a family-owned casino that treats you like family. Time now for The Lead.
The Lead is presented by Sasquatch Casino, a family-owned casino that treats you like family.
When Bruce and I did the show together, we would always joke about power rankings because it is the catnip for all sportscasters. Got to talk about it no matter who it comes from. So here we go. The first mock draft of 2026, NFL.com's Dan Parr did that mock draft, the first one out of the chute, and he has the Broncos taking Oregon tight end Kenyon Sadiq. Would this be a dream scenario for the Broncos?
100%. It's a guy that is he's a versatile two-way type player, can block. He's physical. He didn't really catch a lot until this year because our guy Terrence Ferguson was there at Oregon. But listen, they need a tight end. It's with me, the Evan Ingram experiment. If you want to keep him and say in year 2, it could improve maybe. But if I bring Ingram back, I'm using him like a slot receiver. I mean, at this point, he's not a true tight end. They don't see him as that. So this would be between inside linebacker and tight end. If somebody falls to him in the first round, I think that's a best case scenario. And I would certainly be on board with Sadiq.
Well, first things first, though, free agency comes before the draft. What if they wind up bringing in Goddard or they spend a lot of money on Njoku? You still taking him at 30?
Yeah, I mean, no, but I don't know that they got to figure out what they're doing with Ingram first, because they're not going to keep Ingram and then pay Njoku and or Goddard. They're not. So
I think they get rid of him if they can get one of those two guys.
Yeah. So if they bring in one of those two guys, then I'm not taking a tight end at 30. I'm taking an inside linebacker probably, or unless there's a receiver that falls there that you absolutely love. I've seen mocks there between defensive tackle, tight end, and linebacker are the most commonly mocked at 30. So I think they'll have one of those positions available. But no, it's a one or the other. If you go free agency, then you don't go Sadiq. It doesn't make sense for me.
I think that we disagree a little bit about Sadiq. If he's sitting there at 30, clearly you should take him. But I would not trade up to get him. There are teams that are going to be looking for tight ends, specifically one team ahead of the Broncos, and that is the Philadelphia Eagles, which is kind of ironic because they have a really good tight end, but I don't think they want to pay him in Goddard. Here are my thoughts from talking to people who were at the Senior Bowl and have seen a lot of Sadiq. He is off the charts athletic. He is a willing blocker, which is code for he's not a blocker. It's kind of like saying somebody has a lot of potential. That is code for they haven't done it yet. He is a freak athletically, like Kyle Pitts. However, that's where the comparisons end. He doesn't have a great catch radius. He doesn't have a great route tree. He still needs to be far more polished. And the other thing is, when you look at the last 3 or 4 drafts, yeah, you have had some tight ends that have hit clearly. Bowers clearly hit. Sam Laporta clearly hit. But he was a second-round pick. But when he came out, he was NFL ready because he was really good. He was a plus guy in all areas, although he wasn't particularly athletic. Here's my concern about tight ends. Generally speaking, they start to perform truly in their second contract. And there is a lot of work to do with Sadiq. And I love the fact that he played with Bo Nix. That's terrific as well. But I think he has a lot of work to do despite being incredibly athletic. Are you drafting a football player or are you drafting an athlete?
Yeah, and if you draft him as an athlete, you have to have a vision for him to get him on the field because it's a very narrow pathway if you don't think he's ready to block in the run game. I mean, we saw that with Ingram. If he's not part of the run game, how do you use him without being a tell? Like, oh, the kid's in the game, obviously a pass situation. So it's just in general, you'd say best athlete on the board. He makes so much to take him. But again, we've talked about, Eric, they're in a Super Bowl window. And you already had a luxury pick last year with Jahdae Barron. So I like Sadiq. Maybe it sounds like a little more than you do. But if you don't see him as the Broncos as someone who contribute, like be decent contributor this year and then be an impact player year 2, then you got to think long and hard about that because you're trying to win a Super Bowl. You're not trying to say, man, look 5 years from now, look at all these draft picks on the field. That's not the goal anymore. We're not playing a ratings game of who had the best draft class in 2026. They're trying to win a Super Bowl. It's very, very clear. So if Peyton doesn't believe he can get him on the field, then stay away because he couldn't get Ingram on the field.
Right. And when I look at this guy, yeah, he's very enticing. If they don't pick up a free agent tight end, the question is, do you trade up to get him?
No.
Because Philadelphia is sitting with the 23rd pick. If you want to go to 22, that's going to cost you more than likely your second round pick or a pair of mid-round picks. And I like him. And he is – I mean, I would be terrified to, cross-pollinate sports. If he went to the Colorado Rockies, he'll never succeed because they aren't good at drafting or developing. You got to develop this guy. He has great athletic talent, but you have to truly develop him. And to your point, I don't know if he's ready day one. He reminds me a little bit of Thomas. Now I can't remember his name. The tight end that played Julius Thomas in terms of athletic ability. But then again, Julius Thomas played with Peyton Manning. What did Julius Thomas do when he didn't play with Peyton Manning?
He got paid and then left the league.
Right. So, we'll see what happens with him. But fortunately for the Broncos, free agency is first. With that, former Buffs tight end Christian Fauria, whose son played 1 season under Deion Sanders, went after Deion in a recent podcast. I want to tell you what he said. He said, I just don't like the way he coaches football. I don't think he's very bright. I don't think he can manage a game. I think there's a lot of fat flash, but no substance. And he's got a lot of people brainwashed. Not a fan of him, not a fan of his coaching style, not a fan of his messaging. There's a lot of things internally that I know about that I'm not a fan of. Have you gotten the point? He's not a fan. And it's just not worth my energy to sit there and follow it and go back and forth with the emperor has no clothes crowd that support him regardless of how stupid he is sometimes. And it bugs me that a lot of alumni just don't speak up about it. They don't say anything at all. But I will. Does Fauria sound like an angry dad? Or do you agree with some of what he said, considering he won a national championship at CU, won 2 Super Bowls, and played under some great head coaches like Bill McCartney, Bill Belichick, and Joe Gibbs?
It seems personal, obviously, because it affected his kid who was here and it didn't work out. So you have to understand that's the lens and through which he views it. But 2 things can be true. it can be personal, and some of his observations can be correct. That this last year was very clear. It was all hat, no cattle. They were not very good. They were a bunch of mercenaries. And as soon as the crap hit the fan, guys were making business decisions. And I was out at 3 of those games. The lack of effort, lack of tackling, lack of discipline, the penalties. So some of what he's saying is true. I don't know about internally the messaging on that, other than what we see on his YouTube Prime channel, whatever. But that's tailored for us to see. We're not seeing the the raw cut. But I think Fauria at least brings up the point that where is this going? Where is it going with Deion? He deserved all the credit for year 1 in terms of making him relevant. Year 2, Heisman Trophy winner. His son Shadur was a great quarterback for the university. Year 3 was a full-fledged disaster. And that's where I think he's speaking on is like, what is going on here? What is happening here? And to criticize his intellect, that's where it seemed personal, frankly. But some of the other stuff, I'm not going to sit here and say he's wrong, because I saw it last year. The gear, it's just all about the gear, the flash, and where's the meat and potatoes here? Who are the guys that are singing the fight song and care about the university and doing everything? It just feels like a bunch of guys cashing checks. Can't wait to get out of here. And so that's where I do think when Deion, you and I have talked about it, Eric, when he talks about culture doesn't matter. Well, this is from a guy in Fauria. I covered him in college. Christian's not a guy that would just pop off. And he's been in media for a long time in Boston. He knows exactly what he's saying. But he played under McCartney. And there was no better culture coach at CU ever than Bill McCartney. And he played for Belichick. You don't have to like Belichick, but like Peyton, it's very clear. Do your job. You're a piece of the puzzle. And whether he liked Gibbs or not. So my point is, Eric, I think there's merit to some of what he's saying, because it felt like last year, all hat, no cattle.
I am not going to, cut Deion some slack from last year, but he was sick.
Right.
And he wasn't around as much in general as he usually would be. Everything that you just said, I agree with, but I'll tell you what bothers me the most is the fact that he now has instituted a rule that states you cannot wear another team's jersey or hat into the training table. I mean, what the fuck is that? You have lost complete control of your team if a guy from the transfer portal, which seems like half of the roster, is walking in with clothes from the program that they recently played for. With that, if the team doesn't start winning, can the university honestly afford to keep his contract and the roughly 57 or so staff members that he has, which is outrageously high, including a personal bodyguard who is getting paid nearly $50,000 by the school? I mean, when you look at how much CU is in debt, honestly, and the wins aren't there, even though there's been more notoriety for the school and the city of Boulder is clearly benefiting from this, can you really keep this guy after this season if he doesn't win with 2 years left on his deal?
Yeah, this is the quiet part out loud. The only way this framework works is if they win. So for me, it's a minimum 7-5 bowl game, and you're selling out. As soon as they stop selling out and you're 4-8 or 5-7, the math doesn't work. I mean, it's just the dollars he's bringing, you're paying him don't make sense for the university. And everyone gets this, they're caught in the myth of, oh, he's making the school so much money. He's not. They're in debt. They're going to be $27 million in debt. They're paying him $11 million. They're paying him as a top 10 coach in the country. What other top 10 coach, Eric, could go back-to-back 4-8 seasons if that happened this coming year and keep his job? Nowhere. I'll answer my own question. Nowhere would he be safe. Dabo Swinney's staving off critics, trying not to get fired. And the guys he's getting paid like Kirby Smart, Dabo Swinney, I mean, the best of the best of the best. So I don't want to hear, oh, the portal and you've chosen to do it this way. And my other problem with Deion is he doesn't recruit off campus. Bill Belichick recruits off campus. And so at some point,
But wait, Troy, you know where to find him.
yeah, on campus.
Right?
But last year he wasn't on campus from April 19th until August, middle of August.
Yeah.
Part of it was health related, but not all of it. So, I mean, something about the business model has to change. And I've said this in a column. His greatest asset, Deion, is being Deion.
Right.
Why wouldn't you go out and recruit? If he goes into a high school or goes into a home, that's his best asset, his magnetic personality. People gravitate to him. But to force them to come to you, and you don't have the more money than the other schools that are applying for these guys in terms of NIL, I just think that business model is not aligned. And now, if you look at their last recruiting class, they're really taking chances on a bunch of guys who played below, Power 4 level. That they're all gonna. But you know what guys do that need to move to that level? They need to be coached up. Nobody has watched his teams the last 3 years and said, "Man, that's some great coaching."
Right.
They had great talent with Shadur and Travis and some of the skill players, but they did not have great coaching. And his whole business model is built from the outside in. And you and I watch it every week and go, man, they get their ass kicked up front. O-line, D-line. But that's his business model.
Well, here's the thing. Do you think Warren Sapp came in to get a defensive line coach salary? That's part of the $27 million in debt.
Right.
And that is a weak part of that team. And that's what Warren Sapp is in charge of. And to say that he is getting overpaid is an understatement.
But again, my point, if you're going to hire Sapp, he's got to recruit. If you're going to hire these big names, I don't need to just see him at practice. That's only a piece of the puzzle. I mean, last year when they got their ass kicked, just absolutely ears boxed by Utah, and then Deion had a presser, and it's like, they ask him, well, how's it been? Are you sleeping at night? He's like, oh, I haven't even been home. It's been so tough. And I'm like, you want credit for this? That's every coach I've ever known during the season. They're on an aircraft carrier. They don't live a normal life. And he's making it sound like, oh, man, I'm putting in the hours. Well, now in week 10, like, again, the way they looked against Utah, the way they looked against U of A, the way they looked against Arizona State, that was embarrassing. And you're right. He was sick. And that needs to be part of it. But that's why he has to have a better staff. Who are the grinders on his staff? Now, the new offensive coordinator, I think, has a chance. But now they're implementing another system. This is his, third offensive coordinator in 4 years. He's on 2 defensive coordinators. He loses 3 or 4 coaches every year. I mean, and you're bringing in 40, 50 new guys. It's just hard. So all of that said, if you're going to pay him, he's going to have this outrageous staff. He has to win. I don't want to hear excuses. The minimum is a shitty bowl. The minimum.
Okay. As an Indiana grad, I'm feeling pretty good about my football team. Okay. So
for the first time in 100 years.
Well, listen, at the end of the day, we're there. We have as many titles as CU, and it's more recent. So I'm going to ask you if it's okay with you, physically, literally and figuratively, to take off the hat that you are wearing. And I'm asking you to do it for a reason. I'm going to call that your media cap. Can you take off your hat for me?
It's Pepperdine. They open against USC tonight.
I know. I get it. But just for the point of this conversation, that's your media hat. Now that you're not wearing your media hat, take me through the journey as a CU grad of Deion Sanders from the day that he started, from where they are now.
Listen, they needed the bump. They were irrelevant. Carl Durrell, it was terrible. I knew Carl. I covered him with the Broncos. It had gone there. When you watch them, they did not look like a Division I football team. They did not. So Deion comes in, and when he was like, hey, I'm bringing in the Louis and bringing in guys, I understood it, because if you watched it with an objective eye, they were not a D1 football team. But as it went on, it's become more for me. He coached like daddy ball, coaching his kids, and it became very cliquish. And as he lost Travis and he lost Shadur, I just don't see the meat. I don't see the connective tissue. I don't see the culture. And so while I appreciated the initial bump, when they beat TCU. That was one of their biggest wins in years, since the years of Cepho. That one year they went to the Pac-12 championship game. But since then, it's just not making sense to me. And once you paid him and gave him the keys to the athletic department, now he answers to no one. Now it's dangerous. Now it's dangerous. Now there's a risk reward here. Before there was no risk. You were irrelevant. You were paying him $4.5 million. You were rolling the dice in Vegas and you hit. But now you're at the big boy table. Now you're paying him real money and it's not working. Now it jeopardizes not just the football program, but the athletic department and everything else. And that's why I hope the new athletic director, I wrote this, that you got to talk to Deion. You got to get a different business model. You can't have 57 staffers bringing in guys and guest speakers every week, not recruiting off campus, and win 4 games. Like, that doesn't work. That's my issue. If he's going to do all that, you've got to win, Eric. That's as both an alum and media, but you got to win at some point. Now, you're year 4 now. You're year 4. At some point, there has to be, every year he wakes up, you're like, oh, he's going to get 7 or 8 wins. And nobody feels that. You have no idea what you're going to get from him year to year. If they miss on 1 or 2 recruits at skill positions, they go right down the tank. So I'm not frustrated by it. I just feel like now the risk and reward are very similar. Before, there was no risk. Now the risk, if this doesn't work, it can take out an athletic department, let alone the football team.
You can put on your hat now.
Thank goodness.
With that, Deion got a new contract heading into this past season. It's a 5-year deal. I look at deals in the moment. I'm not going to go back and play, backseat driver. I'm not going to say, it was a mistake after the fact. The question is, was it a mistake when it happened? The best example I can give you is, and I can give you a lot of examples, when the Rockies signed Brian Shaw. Okay, to me, that was a very smart move at the time. It just didn't work out. Russell Wilson was a smart move at the time. It just didn't work out. I can go on. Chris Bryant was not a smart move at the time. So when Rick George gave Deion a fat new contract, 5 years, $54 million, like in March of 2025, did you believe at the time it was the right decision? Not what you think now, but back then.
I just felt like they had no choice. I didn't love it, but what choice did they have? That was the only choice they had. Rick George literally staked the football program and planted his fat flag with Deion Sanders.
And then walked out the door.
Right. Because he realized after the season that I think it's going to be difficult to win this way. I think he's never said that. I don't know that. But the fact that he's walked away with Deion still having plenty of time on his contract is very telling to me. But I didn't love it. But what was their choice? That they've backed themselves into their program is identified by one person. And so you love the attention. Boulder loves it. But you're increasing all the applications, but it's not paying for itself anymore. Once that was the issue. But in fairness to them, what's the choice? You let him go and you bring in Bronco Mendenhall and you win 4 games and you have 28,000 in the stands. So they're in this weird dichotomy where they have to take big swings. So I understood it. When they did it, I didn't like the idea because I don't see the path of consistency for Deion. That's all. He had Shedeur and he had Travis. He's never won in his life as a coach without Shedeur or Travis on his team. That's what concerned me, is you're paying him based on past performance, and you know business better than I do. That's always risky. You're paying him for past performance, not future, and he's playing without Shedeur and Travis, and he's never won without those two. And it didn't look good last year. Is Julian Lewis going to save him? Well, now he's lost his left tackle, and their line's not on paper better. I mean, I look at it and go, oh, Julian Lewis, again, is he going to be great this year? I just look at their line and say, I have serious doubts. And they're going to now try to run the football more? Yeah. Have you seen Julian Lewis? He weighs like 180 pounds.
Well, he wasn't a running quarterback, really. He wasn't really a dual threat in high school anyway. I'll give you a CU apples to apples because I have enough contacts up there to know, at least back then, what was going on. Dan Hawkins was given a contract extension right around the time after they beat West Virginia on national television. They were something like 3-1 and 4-1. And I was told by as good of a source as you can get that Mike Bone was getting phone calls from other schools saying, we are interested in hiring Dan Hawkins. And Bone gave him a brand new contract. That clearly did not work out. But at the time, it did make sense to keep him, don't you think?
I didn't. I couldn't stand Hawkins.
No, I'm saying, listen, I know a lot of things
but
about Hawkins, and so do you. His work ethic, yada, yada, yada. But they were 4-1, I believe, at the time. He was a hot commodity. You certainly want to keep a guy who has led his team to a 4-1 record, beating a ranked team in West Virginia at night. I think Bone, he wasn't forced to do it, but he knew he would lose Dan Hawkins. At the time, it made sense. Clearly, it did not work out. Do you see a parallel with Hawkins and Deion?
Well, it's similar but different. I mean, again, with Bone, you get caught up in recency bias, and they're not going to take your coach away in week 5 of the season. They're not.
No, I'm saying after the season was over, he was going to be heavily courted by other teams because I was told Bone was getting phone calls from other schools.
Well, and where Deion played it well was he did the song and dance with some NFL interest. And specifically, his good friend Jerry Jones did him a solid. We're continuing to flirt with this idea when us covering it in the NFL felt like there is no chance he's coaching in the NFL. Take away the name. It's just game management, staff, all the things that go into coaching the NFL. None of it made sense to me, but he's playing that card like, hey, I could go to the NFL, and he has the leverage. He's coming off a 9-win season. And so that's what I mean. Like, what choice did CU feel they had? Right. You can let him go into that contract year. In hindsight, they should have just said, you know what? It's open to negotiation as part of his contract, but we're going to wait another year. We want to see what you're going to do without Shedeur and without Travis. But in some ways, it would be like the Broncos saying, we're going to trade 7 guys for Russell Wilson and not give him a contract. It doesn't make sense. It's like he did kind of what you asked him to do. He's eligible for a contract. What is your choice? You could have played hardball, but you would have to, that's not their relationship. For that to happen, you'd have to have an AD that's got some onions to be like, yeah, you had 3 okay years, and now I want to see it 1 year without those guys. Rick was never going to say that. He was never going to do that.
Okay, coming up after the break, Adam Schefter is reporting he is expecting a flurry of trades during this offseason. One guy who I believe will be on the block is A.J. Brown. Incredibly talented guy. He would easily be the number 1 wide receiver on the Broncos. But he brings a ton of baggage. Louis and Samsonite. Is it worth making the trade for A.J. Brown? That's next. Everyone has their favorite barbecue spot. Mine, Smokin' Dave's Barbecue and Brew. My favorites, slowly smoked ribs, smoked corned beef Reuben, smoked meatloaf with a portobello balsamic cream sauce. And don't forget about Smokin' Dave's 16-hour smoked brisket and pork with one of their 4 homemade barbecue sauces. Great sides, you bet. Barbecue beans made with pork and brisket and their southern corn bake. Man, you got to try it. Plus, they have amazing non-barbecue entrees on the menu. Go where I go, Smokin' Dave's Barbecue and Brew in North Denver.
Ferguson's Heating and Cooling is the best in Denver, and their customers agree. Ferguson's has 165 5-star Google reviews, and here's one from Betsy. Highly professional, prompt, and honest. I switched to Ferguson's when I became aware my former company was trying to sell me a whole new system I didn't need. Ferguson's is an honest, working, family-owned business that'll give you a fair price, the highest quality parts and equipment, and they always show up on time. You can trust the Ferguson family like you trust your own family. Go to fergusonsheatingandcooling.com.
Everyone has their favorite sports bar. Mine, the Sportsbook Bar and Grill in Highlands Ranch, DTC, and now in Parker. All their locations are everything a sports bar should be. An upscale menu with 12 different burgers, outstanding wings, and my favorite, the Philly cheesesteak egg rolls. They've got every game on the NFL Sunday Ticket, MLB Extra Innings, NHL Center Ice, NBA League Pass, plus soccer, rugby, and UFC. Sportsbook, great hangout bar, great for private parties. The Sportsbook Bar and Grill in Highlands Ranch, DTC, and now in Parker. They are the sports bar.
Ever wondered where city and county fleet vehicles go when they retire? Now's your chance to find out and score big. Imagine driving away with a great deal on a reliable vehicle. For over 45 years, Roller Auction has been the trusted source for government fleet vehicles and equipment. Trucks, SUVs, sedans, and more, all selling to the highest bidder. Don't miss out. Visit roller.bid/hot takes to get auction updates today. Your next vehicle could be just a click away.
Sasquatch and Wildcard Casinos in Blackhawk have another incredible promotion. They'll be giving away a pair of snowmobiles or nearly $18,000 in cash the weekend of February 20th. It's your choice what you want, the 2 snowmobiles or the cash. Earn daily entries with every locked-up jackpot or by redeeming points on your player card. You can also earn a chance to win during their daily cash drawings every 45 minutes between 10 a.m. and midnight. Sasquatch and Wildcard Casinos, loose slots, great promotions, great food, and a family-owned casino that treats you like family.
And welcome back. Hot Takes with Goodman and Renck. Time now for What's Trending.
What's Trending is presented by Ferguson's Heating and Cooling. Your family should trust the Ferguson family for all your heating and cooling needs, and you'll see why they have over 165 5-star Google reviews. Make an appointment today at fergusonsheatingandcooling.com.
Okay, Troy. Adam Schefter says he believes there's going to be a flurry of trades. One guy who I think will definitely be on the block is A.J. Brown. Disgruntled in Philadelphia despite winning a Super Bowl. Disgruntled in Tennessee as well. Wherever this guy goes, he seems to be pissed off about something. So Brown's former teammate Jason Kelsey had this to say about Brown on a recent podcast. How hard is it to play with a play? It's hard to play with a player that's not giving full effort. It is incredibly frustrating. He's just unfortunately a player who allows his internal frustrations to manifest into his play, and it makes him play worse, and it makes the offense worse, and it makes the energy worse. He added, some guys can block that out. They go out there and just play football. He is clearly not one of those guys. Now, Mike Shanahan, I think, was kind of guilty of bringing in a player with some character issues like a Javon Walker because he felt he was one player away from winning a Super Bowl. Do you think Sean Payton would be willing to trade for Brown if the price was right? And do you believe they should or should not trade for him?
Yeah, man, that's a glowing resume recommendation there for Kelsey. And I would say no. I mean, it's a great locker room, and you sense that maybe there'd be some conformity, but he's coming from a team that won the Super Bowl, and he's not happy. And
Right.
he was out of control whiny last year, and karma bit him in the ass in that playoff game where he had like 3 drops. He's whining for the ball. Then he's gator arming it. Again, I don't know him personally. I know he's kind of an introspective dude and a little different in how he deals with stress and, reading the book on the sideline and trying to calm his mind. I just don't see any of that working with Sean Payton, any of it. And so to try to bring him in and believe he's going to change with Bo Nix and Cortland Sutton would be there, and Cortland Sutton is clearly the favorite.
Yeah.
Security blanket, I don't see it. The reason I never say never in the NFL is Stephon Diggs insists the Broncos wanted him last year, and that surprised me. Now, Diggs hasn't been as bad as Brown, but it's been similar. You can trace the dance steps. So I would say a hard no on Brown. I just don't see the fit. Every guy I talk to privately in the locker room about character and me, we over me, they're just like, literally Zach Allen told me last year, like, we don't have any assholes in this room. And if you are, you'll stick out. Well, A.J. Brown walks into that room, feels like that number would go up by 1.
Right.
I just don't think it'd be worth the risk. The talent is insane. I would, as crazy as it sounds, I'd take a shot on Pickens before I took a shot on Brown.
Really?
Well, because I'm not giving up draft picks.
Yeah.
With Brown, it's both. You're giving up cachet and paying him. At least with Pickens, it would just be money. And I don't see him doing that either because Dallas isn't going to let him go. But I would rather take a chance on a head case on money than money and draft picks.
The Buffalo Bills are rumored to be interested in A.J. Brown. Their ownership has been a mess for a long time. And I used to work in Buffalo, so I am familiar with the Pagulas, but it is all about leadership and making smart decisions and culture. They already dealt with a shit show with Stephon Diggs, and they're potentially going to bring in A.J. Brown. I'm thinking, I know you want to win a Super Bowl, but in some ways you're following the Mike Shanahan playbook, aren't you?
Well, and you'd be doing it with a first-time head coach. I mean, that's a lot to ask Joe Brady, who I'm not sure is ready to be a head coach, to now win a Super Bowl first year, which never happens, outside, I think, George Seifert, and do it while managing A.J. Brown. And, oh, by the way, everything in your job is to keep Josh Allen happy. So, essentially, you're forcing Josh Allen to manage A.J. Brown. Do you want to do that to him? And maybe he could. Like Diggs and Allen, it worked for a while, and then very clearly, Allen, without saying it, had enough of Diggs.
Well, I'll say this. I have been told by many people in Buffalo that Josh Allen is an outstanding leader, right?
I've heard that, yes, and I believe that.
But if you brought in A.J. Brown with Peyton Manning on the roster, I don't think you have a problem with A.J. Brown. Look at Tom Brady with Randy Moss. He had control over that situation. I just don't know. Well, certainly Bo Nix doesn't have the cachet to walk up to A.J. Brown. Clearly, Josh Allen did not have the cachet to smooth things over with Stephon Diggs. What in the world makes anybody think that right now Josh Allen would have the cachet to work things out with A.J. Brown?
Well, he did with Diggs. He just didn't want to play with him anymore. He didn't want to smooth it out. He just got tired of him being a baby on the sidelines.
Right.
He tried. And then where Josh doesn't have, at least I haven't seen visibly, that Brady and Manning do, those two will light you up.
That's right.
In a game, in the field. Allen would, if my understanding, will do some of that behind the scenes, and but he's not going to embarrass you. And he got tired of Diggs's act, just coming up and yelling. He's like, enough. I get it. You're open. Whereas Manning and Brady, that conversation would have been much more give and take. Where Allen, you would just see him on the sidelines, just like head up, eyes rolling, like, really, dude? Like, stop. And to your point, that's not a healthy relationship. And eventually, the quarterback's always going to win that in the NFL. And you move on from the diva receiver. But they need a guy. They do. And Pickens, you saw what he did for Dallas, and he was great until the end of the season. It got squirrely again, like it always does. And wait till you see when he gets paid. What's that going to look like? I mean, he was a head case in Pittsburgh. He just stopped. He gave up on plays.
Right.
And part of the reason Jerry Jeudy's no longer here is Peyton questioned his effort when he wasn't the primary target.
Right.
So, and I saw that with Brown. I've seen that with Pickens. And so to me, to sit here and say, oh, that's going to fit in Denver, I don't know about that.
So what's the deal with the Pepperdine hat?
My son's the director of baseball ops at Pepperdine, Brady. Yeah. And they opened tonight at USC.
Yeah. I got a good Pepperdine story for you. Remember the former head basketball coach, Tom Asbury?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I was a 24-year-old kid in Topeka, Kansas, covering Kansas and Kansas State. How long ago was this? I was there when Joe Montana was the quarterback. That's how long ago I was in Kansas. That was in the early 1990s. And I will never forget sitting in the office of the president of the school, John Weefald. Terrific guy. Dana Altman was leaving to go to Creighton at the time. And I'm some 24-year-old kid, loved college basketball. A friend of mine, Brett, who actually now lives in Denver, his now ex-father-in-law was related to Tom Asbury. And Tom Asbury was doing a terrific job at Pepperdine at the time. He had Doug Christie, too. So John Weefeld looks at me, a 24-year-old kid who does follow college basketball, and said, do you have any suggestions for a new head coach for us?
Oh, yeah.
To which I said, I think Tom Asbury would be a great choice out of Pepperdine. Let's just say Weefald should not have taken my advice because he had never heard of Tom Asbury. So when he became the head coach, I'm thinking, am I really responsible for this shit show?
I didn't say it. It wasn't me.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me. Actually, I'll tell you another story that is similar to that, which is probably worse. I'm not going to name names. Another good friend of mine, his son played high school ball here in Colorado. I wouldn't say that he was highly recruited, but he was a terrific high school football player. So I'm out with my friend that night, and he said to me, my son has 2 offers, one from Colorado, and Dan Hawkins is the new head coach, or he can go play for Jim Harbaugh at Stanford. He goes, Eric, what do you think? And I bought into all of the Dan Hawkins hype early on until I learned far more about him. Like, that wasn't even his offense. It was Peterson who was the brains behind it. So I said to my buddy, there's something about Hawkins I really like. So, of course, his son commits to Colorado. I'm a fucking idiot. Do not ever ask me my opinion about things like that because I'm absolutely 0 for 2.
That's funny. The fact that it turned out that way is just you don't deserve that, Eric. And the fact they listened to you is even more concerning.
No, you know what's more concerning? Not that they listen to me, that they actually ask for my opinion.
Wait, you're asking me?
Right? I can promise you, it's like George Costanza. Whatever I say to you, just do the opposite. That's going to do it for us. Hot Takes with Goodman and Renck. Make it the best possible weekend you can.